Welcome back to Reliving Retro. It is Season 2, Episode 9. We played Columns 3 this week, and we have a very special guest on. I'll allow him to introduce himself. Go ahead, man.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eazy Austin. You can find me on pretty much any social media. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, the whole shebang.
Awesome. And thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. Yaiser, how you doing, buddy?
Feeling a little under the weather, but we're making do.
That's why you're not at my house, huh?
True.
Fair. So, Austin, have some questions for you, buddy.
All right, let's do it.
First off, what would you say your introduction to gaming was? Maybe like your first console? How did you get it? That kind of stuff.
I would say my first introduction would be probably the NES, but I was probably way too young. I remember my mom telling me that she had the NES for me. I was like maybe 2 years old at the time. I was probably way too young to remember. Although I do remember playing on my Super Nintendo. I had a big stack of NES games. I remember playing Super Mario World, the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, Contra 3, the Alien Wars, just a whole stack of Super NES games that I just played like throughout my whole life.
Awesome. And from that point on, did you stay like a Nintendo kid, or did you venture off into like PlayStation 1 for the next gen?
I got an Xbox. I got an original Xbox, but then that big Duke controller that nobody likes. It was like way too big for my small tiny hand. So I was like, my aunt came over with the PlayStation 2, and I'm like, oh, this looks a lot better. And then I asked my dad, like, hey, can you get me a PlayStation 2? And then eventually for like Christmas or something, he got me a PlayStation 2 with Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. That was like my first game for the PS2.
Nice.
And so I was like, wow, I like this a lot better. And then after that, I actually became a PS2 kid all the way up until maybe the PS3 came out. So I ventured off into, other consoles besides Nintendo.
Very cool. Is the PS2 your favorite console of all time?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would probably say the N64 is probably my favorite console because Super Mario 64 is my favorite game of all time. I know the ins and outs of that game, and like every time I go back to it, it just hits home for me. It just hits my childhood. So it's like my comfort game. I love playing it every now and then.
Yeah, Mario 64 is one of those games that for me, like immediately when I fire it up, it's nostalgia.
Yep.
Like, just full of nostalgia for me.
Oh yeah.
Me too.
What would you say are your favorite types of games to play, like your favorite genres?
Probably platformers.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Mario kid. Like I love Mario Maker. I think that's one of the greatest games, like to just make your own Mario levels and just being able to just play them and have other people make them too, and then playing their levels. It's great. I just love platformers.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with you there. I think, Yaiser, your favorite games are probably like RPGs, right? Kind of like sandbox action adventure type of games.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I think Dark Souls 3 might be my favorite game of all time.
Say that again?
I think Dark Souls 3 might be my favorite game.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I think maybe eventually we should sprinkle in a little bit of like modern, even though it's called like Reliving Retro. Maybe for the Patreon or something like that, we could do some more modern games because it would be fun to make me play Dark Souls.
Yeah, it would,
because I've never played it, so I don't know. It'd probably be pretty fun. Speaking of the Patreon, though, $5 a month to support us on there, and for this season, at the end of the season, if you sign up before episode 11 drops, okay, so in the next couple weeks, if you sign up there, you will be entered into a giveaway to win one of the games that we played this season. That list includes Link to the Past, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Super Mario Land 2, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses, Silent Hill for the PS1, Turtles in Time, SSX Tricky, Road Trip Adventure, and Columns 3 so far. We got 3 more games to add to that list. So, get in there. And if you want us to play your game sooner, that's the better way to get that done, because otherwise any of your suggestions are just added to our master list, which is a couple hundred games long. It takes a little bit to, pull that game out of there. So $5 a month, you're basically buying a Yaiser a beer once a month.
That's it.
That's it. So this week we played Columns 3, and let's roundtable this guy real quick. So Yaiser, have you played this game at all before we played it this week?
No, I don't think I've ever played a Sega Genesis before.
Yeah, that's kind of wild, actually.
Yeah, right.
Austin, did you play the Sega Genesis?
I didn't have a Genesis, but I did have the Genesis collection for the PS3. So I'm pretty familiar with like Sonic the Hedgehog and Vector Man and
Cool.
Dr. Robotnik's Bean Machine and all that stuff.
Nice. Have you ever played Columns before?
I've played the first Columns.
Okay.
I
I believe that's the one I also played. I actually forgot to look it up, but whatever one is on the 6-pack, that's the one I played growing up. I definitely never played this one, but like I said, I'm almost 100% sure that I played the original one. Now, roughly how many hours did you give it this week, Austin?
Probably like 1.
Yeah.
I'm not really like the biggest fan of like puzzle games. I'm like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. I haven't really dug my teeth into any sort of puzzle game, but I'm familiar with Columns, so I would just give it a shot. And it was actually pretty addicting for like a little bit, but then after a while, it's like starts to wear off on you. So it's like, I don't feel like it. So I'm just
Yeah, an hour's enough, I think.
yeah.
Yasser, how many hours did you put into it?
I played for like maybe 20 minutes solo, and then we did. I don't know how long we played the other night.
Yeah, I think we
hours?
played it for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours or so.
Yeah.
I will say the competitive is a lot more fun than the solo. So if you
Definitely.
had a chance to play it competitive, then that's definitely the route there. This game's pretty interesting in the sense that first of all, I didn't even know that Sega Genesis had a multi-tap. I knew that Super Nintendo had one. I did not know that the Genesis had one. And this game is compatible with it. And not only could you play with 2 players, but you could play with 3, you could play with 4, and you could even play up to 5 players all at once. So I think that this would be a pretty fun party game back in the 90s.
Yeah, probably.
It's I guess we can just, I mean, we didn't beat the game. I played, I played very minimal single player action here. So there are stages. I believe there's like 8 or so, and they're all basically animal based until you get to the final boss, which is a Sphinx. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I did not play a lot of the single player because I kind of knew basically going into this what it was going to be, and all the fun was going to be had in the multiplayer portion. But let's get it started with the story of this puzzle game. Yaiser, you want to kick it off with story?
Pretty brilliant story here, but no, there is no story, right? I just looked through the manual. I don't think there really is a story at all.
I didn't see one.
Yeah, I gave it a 1.
Yeah, I also
they switched the bosses, I guess, on you I guess that's kind of a
right.
almost a story.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it, right? Like you go in and you play a spider, and then you beat the spider, then you go on to the bat, and then you beat the bat, then you go to a skeleton, then you beat the skeleton, and there's not really a story. You just kind of face scary things until you get to a Sphinx at the end. I also gave it a 1. It doesn't really have a story. It's not to say that that's a knock on this part of the game. It just doesn't have a story. A lot of games don't have stories.
Yeah.
Austin, what about you?
I agree with both of you. I would give this a 1. Even though I read a little bit online that you're supposed to be like an explorer, like in the pyramids and stuff, and just going through all those bosses, like the bat and the skeleton, the Skulltula, and I would also give this a 1. It's pretty simple in format. I would say it's just your average puzzle game.
For sure.
There's really not that much story to it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Again, not saying that, I mean, a 1 is a pretty bad score, but how could we give it anything other than that?
Yeah, but that doesn't really make it a bad game per se, and I already like agree with that. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just doesn't have
exactly
like a background to it.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't really need it.
No. Austin, you want to get us kicked off here for gameplay?
Gameplay, I would probably give it like a 4, you know, because it's It's simple, but it's also addicting. Like I was just so into it, and then like I was looking at my clock, like I'll see like how long I can play this for. I'm like, I've been playing this for 15 minutes already. I'm like, damn, this is. And unless like you know what, I keep playing, and then 30 minutes go by, and then 45 minutes go by. I'm like, wow, I'm more addicted to it than I thought. To be
Yeah.
honest with you.
So Yaiser and I, we played this co-op. Our gameplay footage of that will be up on the channel probably around Wednesday or so. So be on the lookout for that. And I had a similar feeling with this game as you did, where when I first started playing it, I'm like, okay, it's columns, like it's kind of like Tetris, but not really. And I mean, it's a puzzle game in that sense. You can't do a whole lot with the shapes other than rearrange the way that they fall. You can't flip them. It's called columns for a reason, right? Yeah, I think Yaiser made a joke during the playthrough where he said, I wish this was called columns and rows 3, and you could like switch them and flip them on their sides. But yeah, there's no rows. It's just columns. So they just go straight down. And I think part of the gameplay that kept me wanting to play more is trying to figure out, again, I didn't have the manual, right? And like it on my person. I didn't have it physically on me. So I couldn't just flip it open to that page and just read how to do these attacks. But the fact that you could send attacks to your enemy, I think is really cool. Obviously for like a puzzle game, I feel like you kind of need that. Otherwise you kind of lose the allure of it after, you know, maybe 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
There's, you know, it's a time killing game in that sense, right? Like, but for what it is, I think the gameplay is pretty fun. Especially the multiplayer. If there was no multiplayer option, I don't know how I give this more than a 2.
Right.
To be honest. But I gave it a 3.5 because the multiplayer is a lot of fun. And I do think that the fact that you could play up to 5 people at once that's pretty interesting. So what about you, Yaiser?
Yeah, I'll give it a 3.
Okay.
If there was no multiplayer, I agree with you there. I don't even know if I would have given it a 2. But the multiplayer was a lot of fun, especially, you know, the music starts speeding up, your bricks start flying at you super fast. It's it gets pretty intense, but
yeah, the anxiety it causes, huh, when the music starts to speed up.
Pretty
I
ridiculous.
love that feeling in games when it gives you that adrenaline rush.
Yeah,
Me
but
personally
still,
speaking.
I don't know. I think this could have been like a mini game in another game. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I couldn't go too high on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a phone app now. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to
Yeah.
compare it now to the games that we have. You know, you can't compare it to, you know, Bloodborne or anything like that.
Oh, no.
It's kind of tough. This is a phone app. It's one screen, and that's basically it.
What I thought about, well, actually, when thinking about mini games, was Legend of the Mystical Ninja on SNES.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And some of those mini games in that game were like more fun than this game. Like,
Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never played it, but
It's really good.
We should get to it hopefully eventually on this show.
One day.
Right. But yeah, there were a bunch of different ways that you could attack your opponent, like I said. So I think that was pretty cool. Me and Yaiser are trying to kind of figure them out on the fly. All the different ways you can kind of sabotage, I thought were pretty cool. There was like a color blindness mode where like everything goes black and white, and then it's really hard to tell which shapes are what. That one's pretty cool. I like it where the whole screen flips for the opponent, and then your blocks start going.
Like
up.
it goes upside down.
Yeah, from the bottom.
Oh, that was I've done that before. It's like it's 10 times harder, but it's all the more fun in my opinion.
And then I think probably one of the hardest ones to kind of just switch and kind of get the hang of right away is when your opponent sends you the opposite controls. That one always throws me.
It does. It throws me off too.
And then there's another one where you can't switch your blocks at all. So there's a bunch of different ways. I think that's why I moved up the gameplay quite a bit because, you know, for a puzzle game, they tried to make it as interesting as possible, like all the different ways you could like sabotage, I guess, your opponent.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's like the bricks that you can throw that stack the floor of your opponent's screen even higher. so you have less room to work with.
Still don't know how to do that, but it was happening.
Yeah, it happened a lot. I don't know exactly how I was doing it, but that was kind of the fun of trying to figure it all out on the fly. It would have been nice if we had a manual to read before we played the game, so that we just, we were able to kind of just jump right into it and kind of know what we're supposed to be looking for in terms of setting up our next play.
Yeah, tutorial would have been nice.
Yeah, okay, that's true. A tutorial would have been nice. I'll start off with visuals, I suppose. Visuals here, really nothing fancy, right? Again, I'm not going to punish it too hard because of what it is. It's a puzzle game. Are the graphics pretty dull and, nothing crazy going on? Yeah, kind of. I gave visuals a 2.5, kind of just like middle of the road, nothing blew me away. But then again, it's nothing that I absolutely hated. It wasn't hard to look at by any means. So I kind of just gave it right down the middle, 2.5. What about you, Austin?
I would agree with you there. I would give this like a 2. Like it's just pretty straightforward. It's not too it's not too bad.
Yeah.
But I've seen better. I've seen much better
for sure
from the Genesis.
Yeah, I've seen much better from the Genesis, and I've actually seen much better from puzzle games in themselves. There are some Tetris games that look pretty good. I mean, again, this is like a newer era, right? But like Pokemon Puzzle League is obviously a puzzle game on the N64, and the graphics and visuals in that game look a lot better. Even if you look like Dr. Mario is a lot older, and I kind of like all the stuff that they got going on there more than in this game. But for what it is, like I said, it's fine. Yaiser, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you, Rigney, and go right down the middle with 2.5.
2.5.
It's very just mediocre.
Yeah, kind of what you would expect, I think, from a puzzle game, right? It's nothing too crazy.
Yep.
So, let's see here. We can jump over to sound. Yaiser, kick it off for sound, buddy.
Sound, I gave... So there's a couple of pretty cool songs in here, right? We went through all the levels just to listen to them all.
For sure.
I'm going to give it... But it was only like a couple, right? I don't know. Maybe like 2 of them were cool. I don't know. I don't remember. But I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay.
Just because I think that's pretty fair for this.
Yeah. I'll go next. And I agree with you. There were a couple levels where I was like, this song doesn't really do anything for me. And the fact that, we have to listen to it for 5 minutes straight, and it's probably like a 40-second loop. That is kind of killing me a little. But there were some songs that I thought were really, really good. So yeah, I gave it a 3 also. What about you, Austin?
I would also give it a 3 because it's not... There's some games that have such memorable music, such memorable sounds, but Columns 3, you can recognize some of the sounds from like the previous games. There are some good songs in there, but for the most part, they're just mostly forgettable for me. But
Right. I mean, there are some like, decent sound effects. However, that's the thing that I guess would clue me in on, I just did something to my opponent, because I wouldn't have known otherwise, because I'm not looking at my opponent's screen. So like I would hear like a different sound effect, and I'm like, did I just do that, or did he do that to me? Nothing happened on my screen, so I must have messed him up. And then I look over at him, and like something is going wrong on his screen, and I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
so
I mean, kept telling me like, stop doing that to me. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's just happening, man.
I've done some damage.
Yeah, basically. It is funny though how that was working, where we were just trying to figure out how to do attacks to each other, and we couldn't figure it out at all. I did notice that when if you maybe had like a 3 piece combo, I guess, not that they're punches, but you know what I'm saying, 3 combos in a row or whatever.
Tenders.
A 3-piece. What is it? McDonald's used to do chicken selects. Is that what it was?
Yeah, they did.
I think they did. Yeah.
Right?
No, they don't. They were too bready.
Yeah, they were a little bready. We're getting off topic, but it's fine. I'm kind of hungry.
Me too.
So anyway, so if you did like a 3-piece combo or whatever, and then I feel like that would send something to the opponent, and that seemed to always be random because I don't remember exactly it being the same thing every single time. But then I just looked up in the manual now that you were able to send blocks or like the bricks that kind of look like the Mario tunnels. Like you could send those underneath your opponent's floor, like on purpose, but I still don't know how to do that.
I think it said if you score like 10 points in a drop.
Oh,
you send over a row. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then to get multiple, it's like every 10. But
okay.
I don't even know how points work.
Yeah, I don't know how anything works.
I don't even know how columns 3 works.
the entire game. I don't know. If there was a tutorial that like kind of explained, oh, do this to send, attacks, and I think that part, we're kind of transitioning to it now, but I think that part is what made this game age poorly, in my opinion. I think having a tutorial, even if it wasn't mandatory, right? Because a lot of gamers hate mandatory tutorials. Like they'd rather just have the option to just jump in and kind of figure it out for themselves. But I would have liked to play a tutorial for this game because I didn't know what I was doing. So I gave it a 2.5 for aged, which I expected to be a little bit lower, but I bumped it up from a 2 to a 2.5 simply based on the fact that a 5-person, like simultaneous 5 people playing this game is pretty impressive, I think, for back on the Genesis. So I think in that aspect, it aged really well as far as like a local multiplayer type of game is pretty cool. I mean, not even like the N64, you could play 5 people at once. So
right.
So for that, I jumped it up a little bit to 2.5. Austin?
Yeah, for age, I would give this a 2 because, like you said, like this could easily be like a mobile app.
Yep.
Somebody could easily remake columns 3 for like the iPhone or the Android, and it'll still be the exact same. Like,
could probably make it better.
Can you imagine somebody from like back in the day being so excited for Columns 3 to come out and just getting it? And then they come home, it's just like, oh, it's just puzzles.
What's crazy is like those people existed.
Yeah,
that's probably true.
I was actually looking up like long plays of this game yesterday on YouTube just because I wanted to see if there was any actual story at all, or if it just kind of went from stage to stage without really any story progression. And then I looked up speedrunners, and I'm like, oh my god, like people like speedrun this game. That's crazy. Like they beat the whole game in like 20 minutes or something like that. And
wow.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Some people like speedrun like terrible games. I'm not saying this is a terrible game by any means, but it's certainly not like a game that I think people would be dedicating like hundreds to maybe even thousands of hours of their time to, because this game is crazy because it's not like you have to have like perfect reflexes. Obviously that helps, but these bricks are like somewhat predetermined. Like me and Yaiser were looking at ours when we were playing together, and we start off with like the same bricks. Not only do we start off with the same bricks, but like the second set and the third set and the fourth set, like they're all the same. So I think that like just kind of process of elimination or just like practice over time, they're able to learn how they're supposed to lay their bricks out. And because like I was watching this one guy who was speedrunning, and he built like this entire tower to the left, and I'm like, this dude is nuts. Like, I don't know, why does he think that's a good idea? And then he just starts like building another tower to the right, and so it's only like this one like little sliver of area in the middle to play with, and then he just starts dropping things down the middle, and then all these combos fall, and he just destroys his opponent, and he wins like in a minute. Yeah, so it's super interesting to see. Like, obviously there's some like he's memorizing it, you know what I mean? He remembers like what bricks fall where, and people enjoy the game, I guess is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Enough to at least dedicate hours to speed running it. But Yaiser, what'd you give aged?
I'm gonna agree with Austin and give it a 2.
Okay.
Again, I'll say it again. If there was no multiplayer, this might have been like probably the worst game I ever graded so far. But the
worse than Superman 64, bro?
Probably not, but like close. You know what I mean?
So how's it get worse than that?
But yeah, it was fun, man, when me and you were playing. But it's still it feels old.
Yeah, it definitely does feel old, unfortunately. So total scores, Yaiser was the lowest on this at a 2.3, and me and Austin were actually, the same here at 2.4 each.
Oh wow.
So we were all really like we all pretty much agreed right down the line here.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Austin. So before I get to the next segment, I guess, where we pick our next game, I always like to ask the guest if they have a recommendation for us to add to the master list. Now, it's anything from before like the Wii, PS3, Xbox 360 generation. So PS2 and older. If you need a second, I can go ahead and hit the randomizer.
Can this include like arcade games or?
Sure.
Have you guys played Primal Rage at all?
That sounds familiar.
I played it a little bit. There's actually a port for the SNES and the Sega Genesis. So
Yeah.
I mean, so we could definitely play this on either of those systems. It's obviously it's not the same as exactly the same as the arcade, but
Right.
yeah, I can throw Primal Rage on there. That is
Cool.
That's currently not on our master list as of right now. So
Yeah, because I'm playing that game right now, and I'm having a grand old time with it. Like it's bringing back so many memories as a kid when I was just playing this in like at a birthday party, like the arcade.
yeah,
Just seeing Primal Rage on there, and even now I'm still having a great time with it. So I think it would be a good thing to see you guys talk about it. So
it's
Cool.
a stage fighter. Yep, right.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I remember.
Yeah, because like I think you can play as like dinosaurs and like an ape, stuff like
Yeah,
that,
like
right?
King Kong. That's what I remember from it. Like a King Kong looking motherfucker.
yeah, basically.
yeah, something like that.
All right. All right, cool. Yeah, so I'll add Primal Rage to the master list, and then I am going to spin the wheel to see what we're playing next week.
Spin it.
All right.
Okay, Austin. If you're familiar with the show, this is the part where I like to very vaguely describe the next game to see if the guest can guess what the game is.
Okay.
So, good luck, buddy. I think only one person has ever gotten it right.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, we have a first-person shooter released in 1997 on the Nintendo 64, and it was published by Acclaim.
Is it Turok or something?
It is. It's Turok, Dinosaur Hunter.
Wow, dude.
Nice, dude. Good job.
Nice.
Austin, have you ever played this game?
I have seen lots of gameplay footage of it. Like I used to watch like old N64 footage on YouTube, and Turok was one of them. So I was listening like, okay, first person shooter, N64. He's gonna say GoldenEye, and then you said Acclaim. I'm like, oh shit, what other first person shooter? Turok?
Yeah.
Is it Turok? I'm gonna say Turok. So that was just off the top of my head. So
Well,
Nice.
that's what I actually listed it like that on purpose. Normally, I'd kind of say like who publishes it earlier on, but I knew if I left out who published it until the end, that your first
That would've-
thought would probably be GoldenEye,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Perfect Dark, because those are kind of the two like big first person shooters on the system. But no, great job, dude. I'm surprised that you got it because a lot of people don't. But yeah, we will be joined by Ryan from the List Off podcast to talk about Turok next week, and that should be a lot of fun. I've actually never played it before. Well, to be fair, I played it when I was a little kid. I played it on an N64 demo kiosk in not KB Toys, Electronic Boutique. You remember that
nice.
store, Yaiser?
EB Games it turned into, right?
Yeah. It used to be called Electronic Boutique though before that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember.
Yaiser, did you ever play Turok before?
No, I haven't. I
Cool.
don't think I've
So-
heard of it.
Pretty fresh experience, I believe. It's gonna. I don't know. I think it might be a little tough playing a first-person shooter back on with like the N64 controller because it doesn't have the dual analog. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm pretty excited to try it out. So before we move on and end this episode, I gotta find out here. I think I know all the answers, but Yaiser, would you recommend that somebody relives Columns 3?
I wouldn't. It's not something that you need to do with your life.
What about you, Austin?
I would agree with Riser there. Like if you like puzzle games though, like I would say like maybe just give it a shot if you really into puzzle games. If your brain works like that, like if you're
Yeah.
really into puzzle games, then I'd say go for it. Like just give it a shot. It's like it's not really worth too much of your time, but check it out if you have the time.
Yeah, I think I agree with Austin here. If you're into puzzle games, sure, give it a shot. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, puzzle game on the Genesis. So I don't know what that means to you, but
Might be the only one.
it might be the only one. But I'll also say that if you're into puzzle games, you've probably already tried this one out and probably have already found something that you do like better. Because I was agreeing with what you guys were saying, how it's very easily just an app now. You know what I mean? You could just download this on your phone and, spend hours playing it on your phone. But they've already kind of done that with Bejeweled, and that's like better than this game already. So
Yeah.
I love Bejeweled.
although it's a different type of puzzle game, I guess Bejeweled is a type of puzzle game where you kind of just clear the course and move on, whereas this is like you're fighting somebody else, and that makes it more fun, I think. But yeah, for sure they could make this an app, and they probably already have at some point. So I think that's it for this episode. We play Columns 3. Our playthrough will be up on Wednesday, so go check that out. Austin, you want to tell them where they can find you one last time?
You guys can find me on YouTube at Eazy Austin. You can find me on TikTok at Eazy Austin, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, also at Eazy Austin.
Cool.
Awesome. And thanks so much for coming on, man. And you can check us out next week as we play Turok Dinosaur Hunter on the N64. I'm pretty excited for that one. So
yeah, that'll be fun.
Check it out next week. And thank you guys very much. See you later.
Peace.